It sounds like a CYC or something. This is crazy.
Alright guys, what's up? We're looking at the BBS02 here. I've got the hall sensor circuit board kind of loosened off of there, and it's upside down right now, and I'm just looking at it. So we've got some goopers on here. Don't worry about that. Ignore that. That'll come right off. So I made a mistake in my preparing the O2 for 72 volts when I installed the thermistor. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can operate my iPhone here and zoom in. So if you can see, there's the wires from my thermistor that I put in my BBS02 to measure the motor temperature. And it seemed like it was working, but so then if you see, it's soldered in two places here. Man, my finger is so big compared to this stuff. So you can see, I have my thermistor soldered onto this PCB here. So this second wire is the ground. And then I have my other wire from the thermistor wire to here, the sixth one on the end. I thought it was unused in the O2. It looks like it's unused in the O2. I'm kind of curious what it looks like on the HD and on that controller and that circuit board. But I think it's just unused in the O2. So I soldered the other leg of my thermistor there, and then I'm just using that sixth pin on that connector as my thermistor signal, right? So that when I connect my wiring harness to the O2, I was reading that motor temperature from the thermistor. But the problem here is like you can see right here, this wire. I think when I screwed this PCB back onto the motor, this wire was bent in such a way where this, you can see this piece right here, that's actually the insulation is just like, kind of like came off, right? And there's just bare wire right there on one leg of my thermistor, and I think that was touching this on the PCB, and that is a hall sensor. So that's why I was getting that funny speed measurement on the Phaserunner, is because that hall sensor signal was affecting my thermistor, and it was probably grounding it out or something. And so then the Phaserunner thought that all those little signals coming from here to here, the Phaserunner thought that was one of like those duplexed speed signals. And so it was reading that as a speed signal. I think the thermistor itself was working, but the Phaserunner thought that hall signal that was coming through my thermistor was like a speed signal. So, because I think that's how some speed signals work or something. So I just need to put this thing back. I think the thermistor itself is fine. I thought maybe it was getting too hot. But I mean, isn't that a thermistor's job, is to get hot? So I don't think that the thermistor got too hot. I think that it was just when I screwed it back down onto the motor, the wire, the leg of that thing just pierced through the insulation, and it was touching my thermistor. So I want to fix that, because that was affecting my speed signal. I don't know, it could have been affecting the hall sensor. So, but I think it was just affecting the speed signal. So what I'm gonna do here is just try and fix this. I'm probably gonna put some, I think the I don't want to dig that thermistor out if I don't have to, because that's gonna be a pain. It was working, like I saw the temperature and it was working, so I think I'm just gonna try and fix this and make sure that's not touching right there. And then I also need to fix the magnets. They're coming loosey-goosey. So that's a thing that happens in the O2, because the rotor is different than the HD. So we're gonna fix this puppy. We're gonna get it running again on 72 volts, and we're gonna try again. So let's fix this thing. Alright guys, so here's my solution to this problem. In old-fashioned e-bike builder, in true e-bike builder style, I've got electrical tape all over everything. I've got the smallest, tiniest pieces. I've got the tiniest pieces of electrical tape that I have ever created on the legs of my thermistor. So the thermistor was working, except for it was getting that weird signal. I think it was touching the hall sensor. So, I mean, I think the glue in the thermistor down in there is fine. I dug some of the glue out of there. It seems like the wires, like that hook on to the legs of the thermistor, are still intact inside of all that glue. So I'm just gonna leave that there for now. I still have faith in this thermistor. It was working. I think that the wire was just, the insulation got cut and it was pressing against that hall sensor leg thing. So I'm gonna get this thing back flipped up on here and get it back in here, and then I want to pull the rotor out. I don't know if these magnets are all the same. I think they kind of alternate, so I'm gonna make some marks on these before I take them out, just so I know. So I'm gonna mark this one like that, and then I'm gonna mark every other magnet. Somebody tell me in the comments, I don't know, but I mean, one time I took a motor apart and they were red, blue, like alternating. So I think the magnets alternate in some way. And we gotta kind of like keep track of these magnets we're taking out. Alright guys, you might be able to hear the air fryer, but this is taking me a while. This is how I was able to get it out, was with this Nipex. I have a Nipex pliers grabbing on to a microfiber cloth, which is double layered. I'm grabbing onto the bottom of that twisty gear of the rotor, where the nylon gear doesn't really touch it. So guys, if you use any kind of a wrench, even with a cloth, when you're grabbing onto this rotor, make sure you're grabbing them down at the bottom, right? You can kind of see that grease line where the nylon gear interfaces with this thing. It's slightly past halfway down, right? So if you're grabbing onto this thing with a wrench, just make sure it's at the very bottom, down towards the base of it, and away from where the nylon gear interfaces with this helical gear on the rotor. Alright guys, so here's inside the motor. Here's the rotor. It looks like about five magnets came loose. So there's 3 of them right there, kind of all in a row, and then there's another 2 that I picked out of there when I was removing the rotor to kind of make it easier. So here is the bearing that goes down in here. So it says 628RS, and then HCH, and then there's, what was that other thing? I don't know. J595. So whatever that means. There's a whole bunch of magnet dust all over this thing, and then a couple of them fell off. My plan to fix this dilemma is we've got some JB Weld high heat. We got this stuff in the toolkit. We've had this problem in the past, right? So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a cloth or like a paper towel or something and wipe all the magnet dust off of this thing, because it's kind of hurting my fingers, even just getting a little bit on there. So I'm gonna get this wiped off and wipe off inside of here. Alright guys, so as I'm wiping all the magnet dust off of my tattered, derelict rotor. Guys, it's really late. I have to whisper and be quiet. I'm wiping off the rotor. It's full of magnet dust. I'm especially wiping down in this crack. Right down in there, in between each magnet. Because we're gonna JB weld the out of this down in the crack. We're gonna get it in the crack. We're gonna fill all the cracks. With that JB weld. I've solved another one of life's problems with electrical tape. I've used it to stick onto the bottom of this rotor, just flush with the bottom, because that's how you want all these magnets on that side, is just flush. So I don't want any JB weld getting down any further than that. So I've got kind of some tape on there, sticking on there, just helping me keep the magnets flush where they need to be while I JB weld them. So I'm gonna get those, I think I'm gonna get those two magnets back where they need to be, and then we're gonna JB weld in the cracks, and then pretty heavy over on this side, kind of along the edge. Alright guys, so it's a new day, it's a new me. My Bafang BBS02 mid-drive is still in tatters. Here's the rotor that we've repaired and we've JB welded into oblivion and back. Look at that puppy. Look at that thing, good as new. Leave a comment. Let me know in the comments, how do you think this JB welded BBS02 rotor is gonna work out? So one thing I forgot to mention in the video last night is don't get any JB weld on this little bearing right here. What does that say on it? 628RS J595HCH. So there's the bearing on the bottom of the rotor. I'm sure if you bought a new rotor, it would probably come with that on there. But, so here is the BBS02 rotor. This thing is different than the BBS HD. And I don't recommend that anybody try using the BBS02 on 72 volts with a better controller if you're not making some kind of a modification to this rotor. Like this stock rotor, these magnets just like went all over the place. They went all over, they went everywhere. They were grinding and scraping and they came loose. There was magnet dust like all over the place. There's magnet dust there's a little bit of magnet dust that kind of got down in here. But I'm not gonna dig out the nylon gear and put all that grease and get all that grease out back in there over just a little bit of magnet dust. I think that should be alright. I mean, it was already getting all mixed up with the moly grease that comes through from down in the bottom there, so whatever. Or that moly grease comes in from down on the nylon gear sometimes. But so I looked through the nylon gear and I don't know, I mean it seems okay. It doesn't seem like anything broke. People are always talking smack about those nylon gears, but I've still never broke one ever, so I don't know. I mean, now so here's my rotor. I JB welded it. And these magnets, so they kind of slide into this thing from the side, and I don't know if you can really see it anymore. I got some electrical tape on the bottom of this because I wanted to prevent the JB weld from going from sinking down onto the bottom of this, because I just didn't want that. But then right here on the top of this, I mean, I guess I probably could have put a little bit more JB weld on the bottom of this, because when this thing goes back in there, it would have cleared, you know, like when you stick this bearing down in that hole, the where I have that JB weld on the sides, like right here, where I have that JB weld, I think it would have cleared. So I probably could have done the same thing on each side, but it seemed like the magnets. It seems like the magnets were popping off, like, up here. Like I could see them popping off. And then it seems like this whole thing, this whole rotor thing is magnetic too. My guess is that Bafang has done some kind of like Chinese calculation where they figured out like, well, when we're running this thing at 750 watts on 48 volts, like what is the cheapest possible adhesive and the cheapest possible way that we can put this rotor together and it'll work. But then as soon as you try and do anything more than stock, I don't think that this rotor can handle it. Like the magnets just like came loose, right? So I want to talk about how I JB welded this thing and my strategy. So I got the JB weld down these cracks. I'm gonna pull the bottom of this electrical tape off so you can see what this rotor looks like without all the stuff on there. Alright, so here's the bottom of the rotor where I had that electrical tape. And you can see how all the magnets kind of go in there, and then the shape of the rotor where there's kind of like slots where the magnets slide into the rotor, and the magnets are kind of beveled. They're not just a rectangle, it's kind of like a beveled. They're a little bit bigger on one side than the other side, and they're supposed to fit in there, and I don't know like how they were coming loose. I mean, you would think that from the shape of that thing that the magnets would just slide in there and then stay in there. And so this rotor is different than the HD, because the HD, there's actually like holes in the rotor where the magnets slide into, and they're completely inside of a hole inside of the rotor, whereas on this one the magnets are kind of sticking, you know, sticking out, and they're this and down in like these little notches, but somehow they were coming loose and like popping out a little bit. So I glued them, we JB welded them like this. And I'm actually considering now putting another layer of JB weld just along the bottom down here. Because as I'm looking at this, you can kind of, I don't know, I mean I'm not sure. I need to get like a file or something to kind of scrape some of those little burrs, those little like JB weld like chunks off the edge of that, so that it's not, I think if I put this in there like that, those little crusties would be scraping. So I gotta break those off with something, but that should be easy enough. I don't know. I mean, I might put even more JB weld on there, kind of like this, except just on the bottom. And then maybe that'll be the final product. Let me know in the comments, guys. How would you have fixed this rotor? What would you have done to get these magnets back on there? So that's my rotor. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I want to wait. I don't know if I want to wait for more JB weld to dry. Like, I kind of just want to test this out. So I think I'm just gonna leave it like this. I mean, I think that should hold it in there, right? Like, I've got JB weld, like tons of it on the edge here, and that's kind of where I saw the magnets kind of coming loose, and then down in the cracks, right? So like that magnet, those magnets, like they shouldn't be able to come out anymore, I don't think, when there's the whole crack is JB welded. And I don't know, maybe there's like some nerds in the comments, you guys can tell me, oh, did that little bit of JB weld down in the crack affect the magnetic field? Let me know in the comments, you f***ing nerds. Do the calculation for me. How much efficiency am I losing when I JB welded the magnets and there's JB weld down the crack? How does that affect the magnetic field? Make me a picture so I can learn something. Alright. But, I mean, we're looking down here. Everything, like, that seems okay. I don't know. I mean, so what I'm going to do is, it seems like some of these wires... Where's my damn... It seems like some of these wires... Or not wires, these little strings. I mean, there's these strings like holding all this stuff back, but it seems like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. Like, did this whole thing? Man, that's kind of interesting. Like, I wonder if those make like, cause it's like, it seems like all of these strings got cut, kind of like along 5 magnets, just like how the magnets came loose. Remember, there's like 5 magnets all right next to each other that came loose. I don't know if those two events had anything to do with each other, but I think I'm gonna do a zip tie or something instead. Like, I think I might back this screw out a little bit. It looks like it's kind of maybe in there a little bit more than it should be anyways. I think I can fit like a little tiny zip tie underneath this plastic thing, like right next to the screw, and then just fit it underneath there, kind of like that rope is, and then just have it come around out here, and then zip tie all of this stuff and like anchor it to this little plastic thing by the screw hole. Because I'm not sure what these strings are for. I mean, they can't be for anything too, like, they can't be for anything too useful if they're just these little tiny strings. But, I mean, I'm assuming it's just to keep all of the wires. There's probably, like, when there's all this magnetic stuff happening, like, I imagine, like, some of these wires over here might kind of get pulled towards the magnets. I don't know. But so I'm gonna zip tie this stuff back in there and make sure it's not moving. All right, so then one last thing about this rotor, guys. I could be repeating myself, but I grabbed onto this thing with a big old Knipex, like jaws of doom, to get this rotor pulled out. Make sure you grab it down at the bottom where there's no grease line and where the nylon gear doesn't touch all of these helical gears. I mean, I got pretty close there with mine. It might even be touching slightly on the edge of the nylon gear, but I mean, those teeth got the teeth on this thing got all chewed up when I pulled that thing out. It was not easy to get out. I have no idea how I got this thing out by hand the first time. I mean, I think the magnets might have just been stuck this time, but anyway, so if you're wrenching on this rotor on this gear, like, put something over it. Be careful. Don't chew up the teeth where you need them most. You know, like from here, from here to the top where it touches the nylon gear when it goes in there, right? Uh-oh. Alright, so what I've been doing is the little pieces that are sticking off the side, I'm just kind of like sawing them off with a razor blade, and they're coming off pretty good. So now I think I got most of those little chunks off that were kind of sticking out. I don't know, guys. I mean, I'm kind of fixing to just stick this thing back in there and see what happens. But before that, I do want to get that zip tie. It's probably going to be easier to zip tie all these phase wires. Like, I want to get these zip tied back, like I said. Alright, guys, so I got these little tiny 4-inch cable ties. It says they can go -40 to 85 C. So that's what my cable ties are rated for, 85 C, 185 F. So I guess we'll have to see about that. But so what I'm gonna do here is just kind of, I want them to hold this. So I'm just gonna do it like this, alright? Like, just get the zip tie going really tight on there like that, and then all of that stuff should be anchored to this thing, and then I'll screw this back down in there a little bit. Alright, so here are my zip ties that I've got going on here. So I've got 3 zip ties strategically placed so that hopefully, it looks like we might have to pull this one a little bit more. But so you can see these zip ties, how they're kind of like keeping everything clear of the spinning parts of the motor. So I'm probably gonna cut these loosey-goosey ones off. I'm gonna tighten this one up just a little bit more so that it's pulling that back a little bit. And then we're gonna cut my zip ties. Alright guys, so if you're JB welding this thing, I did put that electrical tape down on this side, and this side of it isn't as crucial, right? Like, if there's, now you're not gonna want anything like any extra JB weld like on the surface of this, because the tolerance between these magnets and the stator, it's just so tiny. So like, when you gotta make sure that you clean the surface of all of these magnets off, and that all of your little cracks, like, none of that JB weld is coming out further than the magnets, right? Or else it's just not going to be able to spin. The rotor won't be able to spin. So I made very sure after I got all of this JB weld on there, I came back with Q-tips and like wiped off the surface of each magnet so that hopefully everything is like flush around this thing so that it's still going to spin, right? And then so on the top here, I had a whole bunch of JB weld like holding on the magnets kind of from the side, because that's where they seem to be coming loose. But again, I made sure that there's no JB weld on the front face of this where it needs to be spinning. That's probably the most important part, is like you don't want any extra JB weld like up on the top of this, but like on the top, like on the top of the magnet, right? Like protruding at all. So I made pretty sure to not do that. I mean, you could maybe even, if you have masking tape or something, it might help to just put a strip of masking tape on the front face of each magnet. Like, it would take a lot of time to make all those pieces of masking tape or whatever, but once you got done, you could peel it off the top of each magnet and it would be really clean, and then you wouldn't have to use Q-tips. Either way, you can use whatever strategy you want to get the JB weld on there, but just keep that in mind when you're doing it. This thing still needs to spin, right? And if there's any extra JB weld on this thing, it'll either be scraping on the magnets, or, like, keep in mind we've got these little Hall sensors that are down in there, and they're pretty much like flush with the magnets, and you can see when my magnets were coming loose, they were scraping a little bit. But I think the Hall sensors are still okay. They're still down in there. I think they're still okay. So, but yeah, you don't want any extra JB weld scraping, because it would be scraping on either magnets or the kind of like the plastic that holds all of the coils, or it might be scraping the Hall sensor, right? So just keep that in mind if you're running into this same situation that I am. And really, guys, I mean, there could, like, as a final step to this, I could come back here and then put extra JB weld on the bottom of this just to kind of hold the magnets from that side too. I don't know if that's necessary. I could, it'd be easy enough to do that. That stuff is stinky though. I don't know. I might. We'll have to think about it. I'll have to think about that.
Alright guys, we're back out in the garage. I got the BBS02 back on the bike, and I'm honestly a little bit scared. I have it connected to the Phaserunner suite. Phaserunner's connected. I guess I'm just gonna hit the throttle and see what happens. I'm actually very scared. I have like the butterflies. I'm scared because we've JB welded the rotor, the magnets back onto the rotor, and we're about to push the throttle and see what happens, and I'm scared. I'm scared. I've got the throttle on low power. Is it gonna work? Moment of truth. Everybody in the comments, give me the prayer hands. Give me some prayer hands, or maybe some crossed fingers in the comments right now. Right now, like and subscribe. Alright, oh man, I got the butterflies in my stomach. Let's hit the throttle. Whoa. Okay. So we might be in business, boys. Oh, let's see here. We got a couple faults. We got Hall sensor and then Hall transition. So what I usually do to fix that is I go to this and I change this from Hall sensor to Hall sensor, sensorless run, and then I hit save. So I wonder, are the Halls messed up? Is something the matter here? Let's hit the throttle a little bit more and see what happens. Oh, hey. Ooh. I think we might have it, boys. I think the JB welded rotor is hanging in there. Alright, so I'm gonna get the chain ring and the chain back onto the motor and see how that behaves. All right, boys, we're taking this thing up a big hill. Man, it sounds funny. I don't know if that's gonna go away or what. Thermistor's working. It still sounds crazy. I don't know. Brakes aren't working. It's really windy. I don't know. When I tested it, just lifting the wheel off the ground, it didn't seem like it was. Let's see what it sounds like. It's loud. Like, it's a lot louder than the BBS HD. I don't have any field weakening turned on, so I don't know. But I don't hear the scraping, you know? So I think that problem's fixed. The speed sensor still isn't fixed. Like, I don't know what the deal is with that. I might have soldered the circuit board and got it too hot and fucked it up or something, or I don't know. I might have to buy another hall sensor circuit board for the motor, but I don't think those are that expensive. It's a small board. It's probably just like 25 bucks or something. All right, well, I mean, I don't know. I still gotta tune this thing and program it, but at least I think those magnets are sorted out. Let's ride it back up the hill. Maybe I'll turn down the phase current just a little bit. Maybe it's like that G60 hub motor where, like, when the magnetic forces are like too strong, like something is either like bending or I don't know, but it sounds pretty good now. We're going 30 in first gear. I don't think I did that before. I changed it into sensorless start, or sensor start and then sensorless run, and I think it's going faster now, because before, man, I gotta be careful, my brakes suck. Before, when I had it on hall sensor only, in the first gear, it was only going like 22 or 24 or something, I forget. I actually, when I went up that hill, I think it actually sounded a little bit better than, like, it's getting better as I ride it. So maybe there's just like a little bit of JB weld on the side of one of the magnets or something that is just kind of gonna have to scrape itself off. But all right, guys, well, thanks for watching. My Crocs are all wet. I think I fixed it. I mean, we're taking this thing on another ride. I still don't know what's going on with the speed sensor. Like, I might have to order a whole nother circuit board. I don't know, but for now I've got kind of a workaround and I can ride it. So thanks for watching, dudes. I'll take it on one last rip down the hill, down this hill here. Oh. Oh man. So that was only third gear. All right, it's wet. I'm going home. Thanks for watching. I think it's fixed for now, maybe. Let me know in the comments, is it fixed or is it gonna explode again? Let me know. Peace out, dudes. Thanks for watching. See you later. See you next time. Bye-bye.